Welcome everybody to Spirit Matters. My name is Dayal. I'm here with Kishor and Acyuta. This is your daily Bhakti Center podcast where we come online and we talk about spiritual stuff because we need to do it every day with friends and peers and each other and talk about how we navigate this crazy world with these beautiful ancient Vedic teachings that we've been given that sometimes make a lot of sense and sometimes it's like, what are they trying to tell me? What is the universe trying to tell me? And sometimes it was a beautiful yesterday there was a question that we left off with from David Flesher. He's not here this morning, but he reached out to me to clarify. His question wasn't actually a question, it was a take home point. It was something like how to know what is my own thoughts versus like inner guidance, and sometimes that noise that gets tuned out. And he was just saying becoming aware of that. And I think that there's always an inner voice in our head, and sometimes it's like this deep inner knowing, and sometimes it's just like this real scattered, anxious, like, do it, don't do it, and like everyone hates you, everyone loves you, and it's like, how do we know the difference? And it's really, when we talked about this last week also with Veer a little bit, is like when we're grounded in spiritual truth, when we're in touch with spiritual teachings and literature, and also when we're in conversation and regular sangha with like-minded people, and it's not just me and the voice in my head, but there's that. And there's also, that's why we have that 3-point checks and balance systems in our spiritual culture of guru, sadhu, and shastra. That there's the spiritual teacher, there's the spiritual teachings, and then there's the community of spiritualists with which we are engaged in, and that in many ways is what this podcast is for. And so so glad that you guys are here. Two Sadhus and a California Dude is the other name of this podcast, with the Acyuta, Kishor, and myself. And how you guys doing this morning? That was my intro, by the way. I'm done. I'm done for the rest of the episode. You guys take it away.
I'm doing really good actually, which I don't know if I should feel bad about that because I think, Doyal, you've been saying how like you're just coming back to life, and I'm like, man, should I have been helping out more on the Puerto Rico retreat? Like, me and Jay Jagannath, I remember us were like, man, Doyal's just in there at all times. Like, we just teach our class one and done, and we're like chilling on the bed. I'm like seeing you after the retreat. I'm like, should I have been in there more? Because I've actually been really good since the retreat. But one thing I will say, just this point about Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, and also really Sangha is so important, because something that really I think has helped revitalize me. One is these podcasts and keeping them going even when we're traveling, and just the importance of Sangha. I was talking about this with Jai. I was telling him like how before the retreat I felt like I was really struggling with my my meditation practices, and it turning into like a rote thing. I live alone in an apartment with no accountability structures except for myself. And Jaya was just like, that is rough, like not being connected to Sangha in a physical way and just like living alone. So I was in a little bit of I'm just gonna put myself out there. I was in a little bit of a waking up late rut that I couldn't get out of. And I got out of it thanks to the retreat, and I've been waking up early. And I was just telling my partner this morning, I'm like, waking up early is truly the answer. Like I just feel good. Like I feel good. So I'm feeling good. Woke up early, chanted, here with you all, feeling great. How are you, Acyuta?
What time did you wake up, Acyuta?
I woke up at 5.
Nobody has to answer. Nobody has to answer that question.
Yes.
I'll only answer on the good days. On the other days, it's like, oh, there was something.
A little while ago. That's how we judge each other in spiritual life. What time did you wake up?
Yeah, no, I woke up. It's been like a battle back and forth with me and this alarm clock. And I have like tuned my alarm clocks to kirtan, which sounds like a really great idea at first, and then after a couple of months, you kind of just feel like, oh, I hate this kirtan now. Oh. And I've kind of been like reacquainting myself with like the fact that, no, I love this kirtan again. Bless you, Doyle. I love this kirtan because you hear about all of these people living like the dream, right? I was listening to a lecture, really old lecture, and Ramnath Swami was talking about how there's like a spiritual Mahajan, right? So there's like a spiritual godfather for every person in every particular way of life. And so he was saying not all of them are just renunciates or monks. There are householders and kings and all kinds of people. And he was saying, people think it's easy for the brahmacharis or the monks. They have somebody waking them up in the morning like, Hare Krishna, wake up, And he was saying, but even these kings would surround themselves with like pure teachers and advisors who would wake them up in the morning with the chanting of these Vedic mantras and all kinds of spiritual atmosphere that would wake them up. And I started to think about the fact that I've tuned my alarm clocks to kirtans, and the fact that it was really starting to like get on my nerves. But then I was like, oh wait, hey, this is the goal. This is the thing. Like, let the kirtan do its thing. Let it wake you up. Let it start that day in like the best mood possible. And then thinking about like different pastimes, like Krishna would wake up and his mother would teach him like the first thing you do when you wake up, he stretches, but then the first thing he says is Vishnu, Vishnu. And so just this idea of kind of being surrounded either by hook or by crook, by force or by like willingly surrounded by this spiritual sound vibration when you wake up makes such a big difference. And it kind of made me change my mindset to, oh no, wait, this is the goal though. Even on the days when it feels like I'm fighting with it and the days when it's tough, this is the goal. Let the holy name do its thing. Let it work its magic, even if we feel like too tired or dragged out, whatever it is. So I'm feeling super grateful, feeling really happy, trying to switch around the mindset.
Well, great. I'm glad two of you guys are doing good. No, I'm doing good too. I'm doing good too. I sleep with the dog who like doesn't get up till 10 a.m. Like we get up and he's like, why are we waking up so early? Like what is going on here? Like we have to force take him out in the morning because he would just stay on the couch till like 11. But I love this idea. And I was just thinking like, we should create like a remote ashram, like a virtual ashram, like, because you don't need like people, like even if you had one other buddy, like there's these two, Danielle Benson, who's also on the Rise platform, and her friend, the two of them, they like exchange Bhagavad Gita verses every day. And so like one will send a Gita verse and the other one will send one back, and they'll have like realizations back and forth, and it's really, really sweet. And so I was thinking like, even if you have another friend that's like, hey, like let's get up, like, okay, because when I wake up in the morning, there's like no, like Kishor was saying, you're living alone, there's no accountability. But it's like, imagine if you had a friend that you just like, hey, like let's wake up at the same time together and let's call each other and like text each other. So like, oh, I'm going to get a text from that person or a call from that person, and it's like, imagine if we created like that little virtual ashram sangha.
You want to know something crazy? That's exactly what japa is. It's like you wake up with your best friend, and then your best friend's like, look, just call me first thing in the morning. And then we're always like, well, I don't want to call you in the morning. And like you chant your japa, like, I don't know if I can think about this anymore. It's kind of crazy that Krishna is just like, hey guys, it'd be really great if I could just talk to you first thing in the morning. We're like, oh, I don't know. But yeah, definitely. We need a buddy system.
Yeah. I'll talk to you after lunch, Krishna. Kimberly just said that Sydney and her just became accountability partners recently. Kimberly's in California, Sydney's in Texas. That's amazing. All right, who else wants to get on the accountability shame game? No, I'm joking.
I was just gonna say that I haven't figured out how to tune my like phone to japa or kirtan or anything, so I have to do it, because I just wanted to share like how interesting it is. We were talking about this yesterday, about how when the mind is controlled under the self, which is a very high standard, that it can be the best friend, and when it's uncontrolled, it can be the worst enemy. And I was just having this moment this morning, because I really think about those moments that we are taken away from Krishna, or those moments that we think, oh, I'll do it after lunch, or oh, like not right now, or oh, whatever. At least for me, my, incorrect rationalization of that is just like, but I have all this other stuff to do, and it's also very important. Like I have to order the thing, I have to buy the thing, I have to do the thing, I have to do all the things, right? Respond to that message. And I had a moment this morning that was really nice because yesterday morning I was in bliss. I was just like, chanting and it was great. But this morning was a bit of a struggle. I was like going through those motions of just like, okay. But I had this moment where I was like, it's early. And what else would I be doing? Like my mind would go into those places of just like, I have to respond to the message. I have to get on my phone. I have to do this. I'm like, but it's like 6 a.m. Like I don't have to respond to messages right now. Like all I have to do is just do this. And I think the reason I started this with saying like setting up your phone to like a kirtan or to a japa is so important because I was still kind of like manually going onto my phone, putting on like Prabhupada's japa, and I had to take it off airplane mode. And when I took it off airplane mode, it was just like
Like a
all
slot
the
machine.
messages. Yeah, it was like pop, pop, pop. And I was just like, I was like, put it down. It's 6 in the morning.
It's
No
not the
one
problem
needs
is
to
it's
hear.
not 6 in the morning everywhere.
I know.
It's like
I
that
know. But
country
they know
song.
it's 6 in the morning.
O'clock
They know it's
somewhere.
6 in the morning for me. They know it's 6 in the morning for me. But
Yeah.
still, I was just like, I just need to put this away and like dedicate this time to Krishna. It's like showing up for Krishna and really, really like just remembering that all those important things, yes, they are important, but it's not more important than my relationship with Krishna.
Yeah. It's like that. There's that country song. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. So it's like kick off your boots and get
I was
drinking,
about to say, I
whatever
was
it
like,
is.
that's usually about a drinking.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a song I recommend living your life by. You know. Yoga 101, Jenny says that she's in. She usually gets up around 4 a.m. Whoa!
Right?
And try to get at least talk to Christian even before she gets out of bed for a few moments. All right, if anybody needs a power partner, Jenny Yoga 101 is in. I will recommend though highly that like sometimes it can be daunting to think sometimes even just doing short experiments in your life can be powerful. Like I'm going to do this for a week. I'm just going to do this for a week. Just for a week. That's it. It's not like, because if I'm like, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. every day for the rest of my life, it's like, ugh. And like that, you wake up that morning, it's like, I can't do this forever, so why even try? It's like, I'm going to do this for a week or just one day in my week. It can be very, very, very powerful knowing that, okay, like, and then structuring your day accordingly, like if you need to get a little rest a little bit later and like that. But it is a power. And we're going on pilgrimage later this week on Friday. Fingers crossed. We're going on pilgrimage on Friday and we'll be 2 weeks in India. And, we plan to wake up. We were like, we don't want to get people up too early. Like when we go on retreats that aren't to India, we don't wake up too early because people do want to kind of like rest. Or we were in Jahnavi's retreat last week. We had this running joke because Jahnavi is so sweet, going back and forth a little bit. They had like this optional 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. japa meditation period. And Jahnavi, like in the beginning retreat every day, Chelsea was there, she knows, he was like, it's optional, you guys don't have to come, it's only if you want to, but it can be really good if you come, but don't feel any pressure, but some pressure is good sometimes, and you totally don't have to come, but it is good to feel a little bit of pressure. Sometimes you need that nudge in your life. And it was like back and forth, and like the next day, like everybody showed up, but it was kind of like this idea that like, you don't want people to come too early because they're still kind of relaxing. And we were thinking though, it's really, really sweet to kind of get up before the sun rises and to sing songs and to be in Sangha. Like that moment before the alarm clock, when the alarm clock goes off, you're just like you're just feeling like all you want to do is go back. But if you kind of get over that initial wave, that hump, and it's like, it feels really good. And like, you feel surcharged. What is it like? It's in the Bhagavad Gita. Things in the mode of goodness feel like poison in the beginning, but nectar in the end. And so, even if you have like, so we're gonna do that experiment over the next 2 weeks. I don't know what time we're getting up, but we're gonna be getting up and doing kirtan and japa and discussion, and so it is really beautiful. Tanvi says she talks to Krishna throughout the day like he's always right next to me. Beautiful.
So do I. I'm such a person, and I think I've always and for like the earlier part of my life, I was like, I used to describe myself like I'm a person who talks to myself all the time, and then I realized halfway through that it wasn't just talking to myself; I was talking to myself. See what I'm saying? See what I did there? See what's happening, right? And then it turned into, there are so many moments during the day where it's like, dear Govinda, and sometimes there are no words, sometimes there are lots of words, but yeah, but I do recognize that the conversation throughout the day changes depending upon if I've actually done the work to show up in the
Mm.
morning. And like you said, Doyle, do an experiment. I love, my whole life is built on that. My whole life is a series of, what if I tried this for a week? Like you've discovered how I'm still on this podcast. It's because I was like, 1 week. Okay, I'll try it for 1 week. And then after 1 week, I was like, oh, I think my life needs this as a
Mm.
necessity at all times. And
Mm.
I usually don't, I'm like, I try not to plan it out too far in the future. I'm like, it's going to do a thing. Cause if I have to think about committing to something for the rest of my life, when I tell you any initiations, I freaked out because committing for the rest of my life. But if I just think about I'm committing to this for tomorrow, and as long as it keeps working, and Krishna's mercy, it keeps working.
We should do like mini initiations, like reverse psychology, like get initiated for 2 weeks. Like, I can do that. It's like, tricked you. You're in for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
I knew Acyuta was going to be here for the whole time. I just tricked her. I was like, can you just come on for 1 week? She's like, sure.
No, best choice ever.
I, anyways, I'm getting up early tomorrow morning. I'm doing it. I'm making up for lost time.
But
And
also, go ahead, Kishore.
no, go ahead, Acyuta.
I was just going to acknowledge that our God is the God of naps. So do not think that, like, I was just, I also, when I get up in the morning, I kind of like to think about like pastimes of fun people. So I was just reading the morning pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, and somewhere between 3 and 6, he wakes up. And then somewhere between 6 and 8, he takes another nap. And so,
I can get into that.
I was literally right about to say that, Acyuta. I was like, but also take naps, but also rest
take
throughout the
naps.
day.
The nap
Taking naps is
ministry.
not, adverse to spiritual advancement.
Mm, the nap ministry.
And I think it's really interesting, actually. It seems like a very like fun and light topic, like get up early and spiritual life and etc. But I think it's actually I think it's actually a very deep topic because, I mean, there's two things. One is like, okay, there's the experience of trying it for a week and like it feels really amazing, but then there's also this idea of like Doyal kind of mentioned this, I think, at the beginning jokingly, but like we measure our spiritual success by how waking up early and this and etc. And I think it's really interesting to look at that as well, because it's like, how can I make my experience very much my own? It's like my experiment. I'm experimenting for 1 week, for 1 day, whatever it is, and this is what works for me, or it doesn't work for me. I need to wake up for an hour in the morning and then take a nap and etc. later in the day, or not, right? And I think that that's where it becomes very personal. And bhakti is a very personal path, and how I am relating to Krishna, because we mentioned this, I think, was it yesterday? I'm not sure, or maybe I can't remember. But like this idea, oh yeah, 2 + 2 is 4, right? That whole thing. So there are all these different combinations, right? 3 + 1 is 4, and I can't do decimals. I literally can't. 3.5 plus 0.5 is also 4, right? So there are ultimate combinations, and my version of a spiritual practice, it's not going to look exactly the same to the T. And I think that that's where we start to tread on dangerous waters, where it's like, yes, a bit of healthy showing up and accountability is really good, but then at the same time, like getting on the high horse and just like judging others for not meeting quote unquote standards or not doing as I think it should be done is also kind of really dangerous waters to tread, I think.
I
Thank
think
you.
that's a phenomenal point. Because, it can sound like waking up at 4 or 5 a.m. is the only way to make your spiritual practice much more intimate, much more personalized. But I think also, um, I've had spiritual teachers also say, uh, 10 p.m., after 10 p.m., it's basically when everything goes quiet. And there was one sannyasi spiritual teacher, and I loved what he said. And he's all about japa. And like one really cool tip he gave was never be afraid of 2 a.m. japa. which basically means like if you happen to be awake and even if your mind's getting at you or it's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., you can't sleep and all this stuff, chant japa. It still counts. It still works. It's all about whatever we need to do in order to bring ourselves to that point of establishing this relationship. So I think, like Kishore was saying, one of the most important things to remember is that our 2 plus 2 or this, however you and your friends want to hold each other accountable, even if it's just, did we chant today at all? Doesn't matter what time it is, no matter when it happened. And then, we hold ourselves even more accountable. Okay, not just did we chant at all, did we have some feeling behind it? Did we have some interaction behind it? And then we get to watch how our best friend reciprocates, because I promise you they're going to reciprocate. And then that's when we get to share the miracles that happen with each other.
Yeah.
So I think that's a phenomenal point.
I was I looked up this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam because I wanted to bring this verse in that I think sort of encapsulates the overall principle of what we're sharing, because sometimes there's this isn't the verse I was thinking of, but I just thought of it right now. Also, there's the verse from the Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction by Rupa Goswami, where he talks about some of the things that are detrimental to our bhakti practice, and he niyamagraha, which can mean this taking the principles too loosely, like not taking things seriously enough, like, oh, it doesn't matter, what my schedule looks like or my routine looks like, or those principles don't really matter, etc. But they can also be determined as holding on to them too strictly, like thinking that like the accumulation of following certain principles adds up to a successful spiritual life. Like if I've got all the ducks in a row, like if I'm waking up at a certain time and my diet looks a certain way and my dress looks a certain way and I'm speaking a certain way and I'm doing all the things, then all of those things add up to spiritual advancement. And I've forgotten the substance of it, and I'm just focused on the form of like, you could wake up at 2 a.m. every day and still be, spiritually crippled. Because if you're not approaching it in the right mood and you're judging other people and you think that that's what spiritual success means. And so it's that walking that fine line of understanding that these things are meant to bring me to a level of consciousness. And if I'm doing all the things externally, but not experiencing the inner transformation of consciousness internally, then there's a block that's there, and I may need to reevaluate how I'm going about things. And I found there was this verse that I found that was really beautiful that I wanted to read. It's from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the second canto, chapter 3, verse 17, where Krishna says, I don't know who's speaking here, actually. It's not in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaking, but this is in the second canto. It's likely Shukadev Goswami. And it says, both by rising and by setting, the sun decreases the duration of life of everyone, except one who utilizes the time by discussing topics of the all-good personality of Godhead. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. I won't read the whole thing, but I'll read some of it. This verse indirectly confirms that the greater importance of utilizing the human form of life to realize our lost relationship with the Supreme Lord by acceleration of devotional service. Time and tide wait for no one. So the time indicated by the sunrise and the sunset will be uselessly wasted if such time is not properly utilized for realizing identification of spiritual values. Even a fraction of the duration of life wasted cannot be compensated by any amount of gold. Human life is simply awarded to a living entity, the jiva, so that they can realize their spiritual identity and their permanent source of happiness. A living being, especially the human being, is seeking happiness because happiness is the natural situation of the living entity. But they are vainly seeking happiness in the material atmosphere. A living being is constitutionally a spiritual spark of the complete whole, and their happiness can be perfectly perceived in spiritual activities. The Lord is the complete spiritual whole, and his name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, and personality are all identical with him. Once a person comes into contact with any of the above mentioned energies of the Lord through the proper channel of devotional service, the door to perfection is immediately opened. And it's a very powerful purport. It goes on and on. It's a couple long paragraphs. I won't read the whole thing for the sake of time, but I just thought that that really, in a lot of ways, encapsulates what we're discussing. That it's not like waking up early in the morning means that you're going to have a successful spiritual life, but it gives you a powerful opportunity to come in contact with powerful spiritual energy, and that's sort of like the whole gist of the whole thing of spiritual life. Everything that we're doing, whether it's chanting japa, waking up in the morning, offering our food and taking spiritual prasad as sanctified food offerings, doing arti ceremonies, or having a little altar in your home, or associating with devotees, or opening up the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam or spiritual literature. It's literally just putting our consciousness in contact with spiritual energy. So when I'm chanting japa, I'm not like, it's not some spiritual Olympics that I'm trying to like win the gold medal in. It's like I'm trying to take my consciousness and just connect it, to touch it with the sound of spiritual sound vibration. The same thing with kirtan, the same thing with sangha, the same thing with all the five potent elements of Bhangi, Panchanga Bhakti, the holy the Nam, the holy place, the Bhagavatam, the devotees, the worshiping of the deity in the temple. It's all of these things. It's just giving myself a chance to win, giving me an opportunity to come in contact with spiritual energy, because time is so precious. And if I'm not using it in, Prabhupada said this in another purport in the third canto, that spiritual life is always static, I mean, always dynamic. It's never static. We're either going towards Krishna or away. And so if we're not utilizing our time in a fruitful way to at least somehow be in contact with spiritual energy, then we're drifting away. And so the purpose, the principle of all of that, I thought was really beautifully encapsulated in this verse and principle, and I wanted to bring it back in. Since most everything I say is a joke, I thought I would try to say something serious.
I actually I love all of your contributions, joking or otherwise. But this one is like, it's just really, like you said, brings it back to exactly why are we doing all this? Why are we going through the struggle? Why the endeavor? Why so much endeavor for something that we may or may not see the fruits of? And for me, I always like to like take all of the amazing poetic words. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Like, what's this mean in actual like practical application? And I always like to think of it in terms of relationships. And if you had somebody who was like, okay, it's date number 3, I'd like you to be like my steady, specific person. And then they're like, okay, it's been date number 28. I think I'd like you to marry me and we should really start talking about it. And then it's like, so we've been engaged for like a year and I think we should really start planning this wedding. And you'd be like, is there any flippant emotion behind this at all? Like, what is driving this? Why is this just a checklist of things that you've checked off without any, like, there's no
Mm,
substance there?
they got a
And that's how I
spreadsheet.
feel like, yeah, that's how I feel like I don't want my relationship with Krishna just to be a spreadsheet of checklist
Mm,
things that I get up and do, or that I just, and there's no, do I know who this person is that I'm talking to every
mm,
day? Do I know who this person is that I'm falling in love with? And if this person was like that to me, would I want anybody to fall in love with me like that? It's like, that, is it love?
mm.
Are you a robot? Like, what's happening? So for me, I try to always bring it back to I really do think I'm like totally obsessed with relationships. So I always try to bring it back to relationships and bring it back to, okay, what do I want? If if this was like date number 3 with Krishna, and I guarantee you, Krishna flirts with everybody. He doesn't care. He really does not care what gender you have assumed this time round. He's gonna flirt with you. So just, sorry, whatever. Be ready. It gets weird. Whatever. But like, if this was the one where I'm like, you know what, Krishna, I think I want to take things a bit further. I want to get real serious with you. And he's like, okay, why? Is it because it's date number 3, or is it because? And I'm like, no, because I love talking to you every day. And then I wake up, and then,
Mm.
if somebody were like, oh, where'd you get proposed to? And they're like, I don't remember. I think we were kind of like driving around. We stopped at a gas station, and the person proposed. Be like, I'm sorry, what? And you accepted? Why did you accept that? Like, what's happening?
Mm.
Do you have this sense of self-worth? And so when I'm asking Krishna to accept all this subpar stuff that I'm giving, like the japa, when my mind is just totally out of it, and all of it, I'm really asking him to accept the lackluster proposals and all the spreadsheet love that I'm like, here, it's throwaway. And it's like, well, if it's throwaway, why you throw it at me? Like, you could have thrown it anywhere. And I
Mm.
try to use that as some motivation to give myself a little bit. And even if not all the rounds are mindful and conscious, then I can give myself one more. I can give
Mm.
myself 5, 7 minutes, 7, 10 minutes, just to chant with some emotion, some feeling, some purpose of having a conversation with however my relationship develops with Krishna.
Mm. Bhakti is not spreadsheet love. That's our title. I love that. Kishore, I'm
It's a
going to want
great
some
title.
final takeaways from you, but first we're out of time, so I'm going to go to Kimberly. What are our takeaways? If anybody else has some takeaways, you can always write them in our chat. Kimberly's going to amalgamate all of them. Have a few takeaways for us, Kimberly, and then we're going to hear some final words from Kishore.
Thank you for the great discussion. Some takeaways I got out were the importance of spiritual teachers, spiritual teachings, and a community of like-minded people. The idea of being surrounded by spiritual sound vibration when you wake up, whether willingly or forced, and starting your practice in small increments, focusing on the quality of it, personalizing it to what works for you, and understanding that everyone's individual practice looks different.
Everyone's in no project looks different. Beautiful. Rukmini, takeaway. Don't accept the gas station proposal.
Nope.
There it is.
Nope.
Don't accept the gas station proposal.
I was just gonna say maybe we can talk about this more tomorrow, but I really love how Acyuta, you were really focusing in on. I'm also kind of obsessed with relationships and personalism and all that kind of stuff, emotions. And I think maybe we could talk about that a little bit more, because I think that that's really the key here. That's really hitting the nail on the head, because this topic that Dayal brought up in Nectar of Instruction, the niyama agraha versus the niyama agraha, right? Either being kind of flippant with the rules and regulations, or kind of holding on to them too tightly. When I heard that, I was like, really, I feel like those both ends of the spectrum are symptoms of not really understanding my relationship with Krishna, right? If I don't take my relationship with Krishna seriously, then I'm going to be flippant and just like whatever. And if I am veering into spreadsheet love, gas station proposals, then I'm going to be like way too, sticking a little too hard and spreadsheet kind of way. And so really, I love the way that you put it, Acyuta. It's like, who am I waking up in the morning to talk to? Like, what do I know about this person? Is it just because someone told me to? Is it like, what is it exactly? And I think that that's something that's really important, and that's spoken a lot about in our literatures, this idea of relationship, of sambandha. So yeah, that's just kind of percolating in my mind right now, relationship.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Love you guys so much. Acyuta, that was a really beautiful way to take us home there. And thank you for the reflections as well, Kishore. Thank you, Kimberly, for the takeaways. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to our live audience and for listening. Did you have a final word you wanted to say, Acyuta? Because I just can't get enough of your voice.
No, I'm just excited for tomorrow.
All right, dive it in. If you're listening, if you're tuning in on a podcast streaming platform, thank you for being with us. Please rate and review. And please, if you'd like to tune in live, you can join us on the Rise platform. Come to bhakticenter.org and you can join us live every day when we have this episode. We look forward to seeing you guys all again tomorrow. Please have a wonderful, wonderful day. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.